Hey, I'm going to show you how to do stuff, like turning this into this. Ooh. To begin, you will need these tools: wire cutter, a razor or craft knife, and a precision tool set, especially one with a tri-wing screwdriver bit. This will be needed to open the Game Boy in the first place. Tweezers come in handy, also a prying tool. This one is called a spudger. It's gentler on electronic components because it's made of a hard plastic. This project does require a fair bit of soldering, so if you're not comfortable with it, you should probably start with an easier project. Of course, you will need the original Game Boy. This is referred to in the modding community as the DMG1. This one came with the mandatory Tetris game. We'll use that to test out the mod. Most of your supplies can be purchased on eBay. This was fairly inexpensive 28 gauge electrical wire. Next to it is this pack of Rosin-core Solder, desolder wick, some Q-tips, Isopropyl Alcohol wipes, all of which you will need. Also, this is optional. I got myself a new screen because the screen that came with the Game Boy was fairly scratched and I want it to look perfect. Depending on your backlight, you may need a resistor. The one I purchased doesn't have one built in, so we'll be installing this resistor. Also, for this modification, we're installing the Bivert Chip. This is used to invert the signal, which we will then be inverting again with a piece of polarized film. What this does is creates a sharper image that can be seen. Otherwise, the backlight will end up washing out the image. It'll be light, but it'll be a little bit harder to see. This is the backlight we'll be installing. There are many different colors you can choose from. I chose the green backlight because I think it sticks closely to kind of what the Game Boy originally had. It was kind of a green LCD screen. So to begin, we need to take off the back of the Game Boy, and this is done by removing 6 screws which are located in the back. You will need that tri-wing screwdriver bit. There are 2 screws also hidden below the battery compartment, so make sure you remove your batteries, otherwise you won't be able to get to them. Now, I highly recommend using 2 hands when doing this mod, because it's a lot harder to undo these screws with 1 hand. Yet, I was successful, because I am amazing! Now be careful opening up the Game Boy, because there is a ribbon cable connecting the panel that has the batteries to the panel that has the screen on it. This can be easily removed by gently pushing down on the ribbon cable, like so. So you just kind of press down gently so as to not tear the ribbon cable, and it'll just pop off just like that. So set aside the battery compartment, because we'll be working on the screen first. Alright, on the circuit board that has the screen, there are 10 screws that you need to remove. Now the locations are here, 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 and here. So remove those screws, and then you'll be able to get at the screen. And gently pull up on the board so that you don't bust the speaker off or anything. Flip it over, and there you go. There's the screen. That's what we'll be doing most of our modifications to. Set aside the outer shell. I highly recommend washing it, cleaning it up if your Game Boy's dirty. You also need to remove these screws. These screws are holding the ribbon cable attached to the screen down. Removing these will help you get better access to behind the screen. Once you have those screws removed, you can use your prying tool to gently pry off the screen from this little housing. Now you will hear some cracks as the glue separates from the screen, but don't pry too hard because you could crack the screen and damage the LCD. So do it gently, but once you have it pried open, you'll be able to see behind the screen, and we're going to be removing the metallic film that's attached to the back. And all that's used for is reflecting the light back through the LCD screen, but we'll be replacing it with an actual light, so there'll be no need for the reflection. We'll be removing those 2 foam pads, and as you can see, the reflective film that's attached to the back of the LCD. Now this is where your craft knife will come in handy, because it's glued on there pretty good. You need to get your craft knife or a razor in there, in between them, and gently pry them apart. And then once you have enough to grip with your fingers, that's when you'll use your prying tool to basically push off the rest. Now once again, I must stress, do this gently, because there's a high chance you could destroy your screen and mess up the whole project. So do it gently. Once it's off, it looks like this. So now we are ready to install our backlight. Now there is some modification we have to make to the plastic housing, because the screen that I purchased, the cords are in the way. So I used a Sharpie to mark the location where the cords would be coming out, and then I just snipped away with a cutting tool the plastic portion right there that you can see. That way the wires could come straight out from the bottom of the screen. Be sure to trim the wires down so we don't have excessive wire everywhere, because we will be attaching these wires to the circuit board at these 2 contact points right here, the positive and negative. We will also be soldering the resistor that I showed you earlier just directly to the circuit board. Now it's probably best to solder the resistor kind of at an angle like this, that way it's a little bit flatter and won't be in the way. Next we'll be soldering the red wire to the end of the resistor, and of course the black wire to the other contact point. Once you're done with that, be sure to clean up any excessive flux or residue. And voila, there you have it. Now there's still a little bit more work to do, obviously, but we can see that the green backlight is working, which is great. Next we'll move on to the Bivert part. Like I said, we're going to invert the signal, so make sure when you place your polarized film that you're inverting the image. Now we'll be taking the back of the Game Boy, and we need to cut some tracers. This is where the ribbon cable attaches, but we need to cut the tracer connecting this point and this pin right here, and also this point and this pin connecting right here. Now the best way to do this is obviously with a razor or straight edge. Be very careful because you don't want to cut any of the other traces, but once you're done, it'll look something like this. Alright, now we need to solder some wires, that 28 gauge wire that I showed you before. Solder to each one of these points, and when you're done it'll look something like this. So we're going to connect these to these points on your actual circuit board. So feel free to pause the video so you can make sure each one corresponds to each wire. But when you're done, it'll look like this. Now it's kind of messy and it's sticking out all over the place, so I recommend hot gluing it and kind of flipping around the back of the board. That way it's tucked away nicely. But at this point you can reattach your Game Boy back together, screw the screws back in, and attach the new screen if you have one, like I did. Be sure to clean off the old glue beforehand, and when you do, it'll look all brand new and spiffy. Ta-da! So that was pretty fun to do, and as you can hear, it's working. Looks a little better in person, but overall it was fun to do. I hope you had fun making it. Thanks again for watching this video. I'll be making more How to Do Stuff series, but if you want to see more, be sure to subscribe, like, you know the gist. See you around. This is a Game Boy. Cracks and pops. That's the glue separating, being the sound of the glue. Crying out in pain, saying, "Don't kill me, I want to live."